God's Word Express.
Okay, I want to start today with a little scenario. It's actually a joke from the start of our source material, but you'll see why it's so important.
I'm always up for a good setup. Let's hear it.
All right, so picture this. You got three mothers. They're all about 60 years old, and they're having tea. And, they haven't seen each other for a while, so the conversation turns into that sort of subtle competition parents play.
Yes. The my kid is doing better than your kid game. A timeless classic.
Exactly. So the first mother, she sits up a little straighter and says, "My son, he's the president of a major corporation. When he walks into a room, people literally stop and say, 'Hello, Mr. President.'"
Wow. Okay, that's a strong opening move. Hard to top that.
You'd think. But the second mother doesn't even flinch. She just smiles and says, "Well, my son is a bishop, a very high-ranking religious leader. When he enters a room, people bow and say, 'Hello, Bishop.'"
Okay, so we've got corporate power versus spiritual authority. This is getting serious.
Right. But then the third mother just kind of beams. She says, "My son is a fitness instructor." And the other two are, looking at her like she's crazy.
Yeah, like, did you not hear us?
Exactly. President, bishop. But she just keeps going. He's 185 centimeters tall. He has these huge muscles, broad shoulders. He's incredibly handsome. And what does the group say back?
Let me guess.
"Oh, my God."
Oh my God, that's it.
Okay, I see it. It's a joke about status, but it's really about the response. It's about recognition.
It is. And that moment, that difference between just seeing a job title and having this overwhelming reaction, that's the core of what we're digging into today. We're unpacking a sermon called Unleashing Miracles Part 1 by Pastor Dr. Kevin from New Wine International Church.
And just to set the mission here, we aren't just looking at this from a purely theological standpoint. We're analyzing this really fascinating argument he makes about human psychology, and I guess you could call it spiritual geography.
Mental geography, I like that. Yeah, he's basically asking why amazing things or miracles seem to happen in some places but not others. Is it just random, or is there a kind of formula at play?
And he actually gives us a formula, which we'll get to. But the question that hooked me, the one we want you to think about, is this. Is it possible that being too familiar with someone, knowing them too well, can actually stop them from having a positive impact on your life?
It's the whole difference between seeing a fitness instructor and seeing, oh my God, isn't it? It's all about perception.
Right.
And the argument here is that familiarity doesn't just breed contempt. It can breed a kind of blindness that stops the supernatural dead in its tracks.
So let's get into that logic. He starts by defining what miracles are even for. And I thought this was interesting because he immediately gets rid of the idea that they're for a magic show or, some kind of marketing gimmick for a church.
Right. He brings up a passage from Luke chapter 10, the part about woe to Chorazin and Bethsaida. The argument is miracles aren't for showing off. They're not for, comparing whose church has more power.
Our healing rates are up 10% this quarter.
Yeah, exactly. It would be a very weird metric. But the source insists that the one and only purpose of a miracle is to lead people to sit on sackcloth and ashes.
That sounds pretty dramatic. Sackcloth and ashes. What does that actually mean today? Does he want everyone to be miserable?
No, it's a metaphor. It's an old symbol for deep, genuine repentance. It just means turning back to God with real humility. The idea is you see something you can't explain, you recognize there's a higher power, and it makes you want to realign your life. If that part doesn't happen, the miracle kind of failed.
Okay, so that's the why. Now for the how, this is where he brings in that math equation you mentioned. He calls it the zero equation.
And this is really the whole framework for his argument. It's super clear. The formula is N times C equals result.
N times C. All right, let's break that down. What's the C?
C is the constant. And in this context, the constant is Jesus. It represents infinite power, endless potential. That value is fixed. It's always at maximum.
So C is basically infinity, a constant. Got it. So what's N?
N is the variable, and N stands for Nazareth. Or more broadly, it's the environment. It's the reception of the people in that environment. And this is where the math gets, well, a little brutal.
How so?
The pastor argues that even if your constant, your C, is 1,000,000 or 1,000,000,000, if your variable N is 0.
The result is 0.
The result is 0. It's just basic algebra. 1,000 times 0 is still 0. So the environment's attitude can completely cancel out the result, no matter how powerful the source is.
Wow. That's a heavy thought. That you could be standing right next to this incredible power source, but if you're a 0 in your reception, Absolutely nothing happens.
It puts all the responsibility on the receiver, doesn't it? And to explain why a place like Nazareth would have an n value of 0, he tells this tale of two cities. You have Nazareth, and then you have Capernaum.
And I have to say, the history he gives on Nazareth completely changed how I see that whole story. I just pictured this, quaint little village, like a Christmas card.
The picture the source paints is, well, it's a lot grittier. He even starts with the name. Nazareth comes from the Hebrew word netzer, which connects to that prophecy in Isaiah about a branch coming from Jesse.
So the town's name actually means the branch. That sounds pretty significant.
It sounds it, but the reality was the opposite. The town's reputation was awful. The pastor links it to Psalm 22, the I am a worm, not a man part, to describe how people from Nazareth were seen. He calls the town backwards, a hillbilly town.
And he had proof for that, right? Something about a historian?
Yes, Josephus. The historian Josephus listed 45 cities in the region of Galilee. Nazareth wasn't one of them.
Oh, it wasn't even on the list?
Not on the list. That's how irrelevant it was. It was a ghost town. You didn't tell people you were from Nazareth if you wanted to impress them?
But this is the part that really clicked for me, the detail that explains the town's whole mindset. He talks about this other city nearby called Sepphoris.
Sepphoris is the key. It's the missing piece. Sepphoris was called the Pearl of Galilee. Think of it like a modern, booming city, Bangkok or Phuket. It was wealthy, cosmopolitan, Roman architecture, paved roads.
And Nazareth was just down the road from this place.
Nazareth was basically the labor camp for Sepphoris. It was the dormitory town where the construction workers lived, and then they'd commute to Sepphoris to build the rich people's houses.
That changes the whole humble carpenter thing for me. He's saying Jesus' family, so Joseph and his father Jesse, they weren't just guys in a small-town shed.
Probably not. The Greek word is tekton, which means a skilled builder or contractor. The argument is they were likely working on big projects in Sepphoris. They weren't destitute, but they were working-class guys living in the bad part of town.
So just imagine that psychology. You live in Nazareth, the town everyone looks down on. Every day you walk to Sepphoris and you build these beautiful homes for people with wealth and status you'll never have. Then you walk back to your worm town at night.
It gives you a certain chip on your shoulder, right? A mix of defensiveness and maybe a little bit of cynicism. Everyone knows everyone else's business. It's a tough, tight-knit community.
Okay, so that's the setup. That's the mood of the town. And then, in Luke chapter 4, Jesus comes home.
The homecoming.
He goes into the synagogue. He reads from the prophet Isaiah, this incredible passage about setting captives free. And at first, the crowd loves it. The text says they were amazed by his gracious words.
But then the mood just turns on a dime. And it's because of one little question. Someone probably whispered it. Hey, wait a minute. Isn't this Joseph's son?
The pastor calls this the snotty kid syndrome. And it's such a perfect phrase.
It really is.
It's this idea that they're looking at this man speaking with authority, and all they can see is the little kid who used to run around town with a runny nose.
It's such a visceral image. It just captures that psychological barrier. They could not square the common kid they grew up with the divine man standing in front of them, so they tried to pull him back down to their level.
It's like, who do you think you are? You're one of us. You're from Nazareth. If you're suddenly special, what does that make us?
It's pure ego defense. It is so much easier to tear someone else down than to look at your own life and ask why you haven't grown.
And it wasn't just, some heckling. It got violent. Fast.
They dragged him to the edge of town, to the precipice. They were going to throw him off a cliff. That's the level of rage that this familiarity created. It went from, wow, gracious words, to attempted murder in 5 minutes.
And the result, going back to that equation, is that their N became 0. The Bible says he could do no mighty works there.
Not that he wouldn't, that he couldn't. The environment made it impossible. So that's Nazareth. Now let's talk about the complete opposite. Capernaum.
The city of miracles.
Exactly. If Nazareth was the forgotten backwater, Capernaum was the hub. It was on the Sea of Galilee. It was wealthy, a center for trade.
And the geography was a big deal there too, right?
A huge deal. Capernaum was located right on the Via Maris, the Way of the Sea. This was basically the ancient world's I-95. It connected Syria and Damascus all the way down to Egypt.
So everyone had to pass through.
Everyone. Traders, travelers, soldiers, new ideas. It wasn't a closed-off little town stuck in its ways. It was open. And this is where Jesus sets up his headquarters, the City of Jesus.
And the list of miracles that happened there is just staggering. Peter's mother-in-law is healed. The paralyzed man lowered through the roof. The centurion's servant. It's nonstop.
It's a miracle factory, and this leads to a really counterintuitive point the pastor makes about wealth.
Right, because you always hear the opposite, the whole camel through the eye of a needle thing. You think spiritual openness comes from being poor and humble.
But he points out that Capernaum was full of rich merchants. It was a wealthy city, and yet these camels, these rich, sophisticated people, they're the ones getting the miracles.
So it wasn't about the money.
The argument is no. The barrier isn't what's in your bank account, it's what's in your head, your attitude. In Capernaum, Jesus wasn't Joseph's kid, the contractor from that rundown town.
They didn't have his backstory. They didn't have the baggage.
They had no baggage. To them, he was this powerful new teacher, a miracle worker. They had expectancy, not familiarity. And that difference in perception completely changed what was possible.
Which brings us back to that core idea of honor versus familiarity. The pastor uses two Greek words here that really clarify this.
Yes, charis and respect. Charis is where we get the word grace. It means charm, favor, something attractive. And the people in Nazareth, they felt the charis. They said he had gracious words. They liked what he was saying.
But that wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. They lacked honor, respect. The source talks about this human tendency to want to pull down someone who came from your level but has now surpassed you. They felt the charis, but they refused to give the respect.
He has a great analogy for this with Tiger Woods. It's so simple, but it makes the point perfectly.
Yeah, he says, imagine you're at a driving range. You're hitting golf balls. Just doing your thing. And then Tiger Woods walks up to the stall next to you.
You're both technically doing the same thing, hitting a ball with a stick.
Technically. But you don't treat him like just another guy with a stick. You stop. You watch him. You acknowledge the mastery. You give him respect.
You look up.
You look up.
Mm.
Nazareth refused to look up. They wanted to keep him in the carpenter's sun box they'd built for him.
And to make this really practical, he ends with this personal story about a friend of his. And this takes it out of ancient history and puts it right into modern life.
This is a great story. He talks about a childhood friend. They studied together all through middle school and high school, went to the same top engineering university.
So serious history.
Yeah.
He mentions riding the bus together, buying snacks, just normal kid stuff. And he remembers his friend saying on the bus one day, you know, I want to be prime minister.
And if your high school buddy says that, what do?
You laugh. You say, okay, sure, pass the chips. You don't take it seriously.
Right. And the pastor admits he kind of just brushed it off. They were kids, their dads knew each other. It was all very familiar, very common.
But fast forward to today. What's that friend doing now?
He's a very famous member of parliament. A star of parliament, he calls him. He's all over the news, all over YouTube, a major political figure. He actually did it.
So here's the lesson. The pastor says, I know this guy. I know his dad. I know what he was like as a teenager. But how does he treat him today?
He treats him with distance, and he's careful to explain that. Not a cold distance, but a distance of honor and protocol.
So he's not running up to him in Parliament and calling him by his old goofy nickname.
No, he honors the position, he respects the office, and his point is, you cannot receive from a source you don't honor. If he still treated this powerful MP like just some kid he grew up with, he'd be cutting himself off from any influence or help that man could offer. The familiarity would block the benefit.
That is such a powerful way to frame it. We think being close to someone means being super casual, but he's arguing that casualness can actually devalue the power in that relationship.
By treating something special as common, which is exactly what Nazareth did, you strip it of its power to help you. You basically unplug it. You set your own N variable to 0.
That's the spirit of Nazareth.
That's it. Familiarity breeding contempt.
Yeah.
And it's the opposite of the spirit of Capernaum, which is all about expectancy and honor. One gets you a 0 result, the other gets you breakthrough.
So it really does come back to checking that equation in our own lives.
Yeah.
N times C equals result. If the result you're getting is 0, maybe the problem isn't C. Maybe the source of power is fine.
Maybe the problem is your N, your reception. Maybe you've become too familiar, too cynical. You think you've seen it all before.
Which brings us to our final thought for this deep dive. We've gone from a joke about 3 mothers to the hills of Nazareth and the halls of the Thai Parliament.
It's been a journey through the geography of the human heart, really.
So we want to leave you with a question, a challenge based on all this.
We've talked a lot about how familiarity can block amazing things. So my question for you is this. Is there something or someone in your life right now, a mentor, a book on your shelf, a family member, an opportunity that you're getting 0 from simply because you feel like you know it all already?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Uh,
Are you treating a Tiger Woods in your life like just another person at the driving range?
exactly. Because the source material suggests that if you can just flip that switch in your own mind, if you can move from the cynicism of Nazareth to the expectancy of Capernaum, you might just find that the breakthrough you've been waiting for has been right there beside you the whole time.
You just needed to change your variable.
Check your equations.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.